Good morning. Carroll County Commissioners open meeting for Thursday, February 15th. I want to welcome everyone, and as usual, we will do Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, priority Carroll, and I think it's Commissioner Guerin's turn to start.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Carroll County. I actually don't have any prepared remarks for Priority Carroll, and so I reserve the right to unfairly critique and comment on my fellow colleagues' Priority Carrolls, and that's all from me. Thank you.
Mr. Gordon.
Thank you. Two quick things. First and foremost, want to thank Roads Department and staff for all their excellent work with that storm. Obviously, we were very fortunate. It was very minor for the most part and melted quite quickly, but appreciate all that. So just wanted to thank them. Also, earlier this week, I had the pleasure of having Cameron Livesey, who is the owner of Soul Man Suites here for a podcast with me. One of the things I'm going to be doing this year with my podcast is going to be including not only nonprofits, but also individuals that have businesses in the community, trying to showcase some of the small business owners. Well, Cameron is a 13-year-old entrepreneur. Soul Man Suites is a business that he started when he was 10. And he's very involved in the community. He gives back a portion of the proceeds he makes each year to various nonprofits. He was also a nominee and recipient of the Light of Carroll Award. Was also a grant recipient from the group Hey Westminster, which gives funds to a lot of notable causes in our community here. Had the pleasure of meeting John Stamos and making a cake for him when he visited with the library system. Just all around great young individual in the community. He's also going to be making an appearance and be the youngest vendor ever at Taste of Carroll later this year. So he's got a lot of other things coming up. I don't want to take away from that, but just wanted to give credit where credit's due. It's always great to see anyone in our community doing things, but when you're talking about youth, I think he's a definite shining light in the community, and look forward to seeing more from him and everybody else. And that's all I have this morning.
He's almost as tall as you.
I know.
What? I just recognized now. Okay. Sorry. Sorry.
Should have laughed at that. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Vigliotti.
I'm not sure I can follow that up.
Well, just keep it short, Joe. It's fine.
That was
I'll try not to be too long-winded
no
about
pun
it.
intended.
Exactly.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So we have a couple of things on the agenda today. I'm going to do my best to be concise and not grandiloquent, because I know Commissioner Kyler does not like that too much. So I'll do my best to be brief. So last week I had the opportunity to attend the Tawnytown Business Breakfast, where Andrew Gray, who works as a comprehensive planner for the county, filled in the last minute to make a presentation on the economic development land use study. He did very well, and he received a number of very good and thoughtful questions from the 40 or so people who attended the breakfast that morning. And I also learned that morning that he is, in addition to being a comprehensive planner for us, he's an adjunct professor in the Department of Geography and Environmental Planning at Towson University. So I think anytime he comes before us, we're going to have to call him Professor Andrew Gray from now on. I also want to share that the new Bellissimos will have their grand opening in Tawnytown on Tuesday, February 27th at 11 o'clock a.m. And I want to commend Mike Zepp, who works here for the county, for his commitment to helping Bellissimos work through to their opening and for being so diligent and responsive in doing so. And everybody knows I always like to give credit and highlight the efforts of our fellow workers as fit. Last but not least, I want to say thank you to, as Commissioner Gordon had already done, thank you to Public Works, Facilities, Roads, and everybody who, including the people who work in this building, who had everything ready to go when we showed up on Tuesday. Coming into the offices that morning, I passed countless plows. We showed up, the sidewalks were shoveled. Citizens were starting to show up to pay bills or to conduct their business. And even with the commute the way that it was amazing that the people who work for this county were so diligent getting everything open and ready to serve the public. And I also want to say thank you to emergency management, the sheriff, his department, and all of our first responders, both volunteer and professional, for their efforts during the snowstorm as well. On the way in, I did hear, unfortunately, sirens, and we often take for granted that emergency response is always going to be there. And while they certainly will be, they face the same hazardous conditions when responding to an accident in such a storm as those who need the help. But their dedication, the life-saving work they do, and the people that do the work itself deserve our gracious thanks, because they really do mean the world to us. And Commissioner, that's all from me this morning.
Thank you. Commissioner Rothstein.
First of all, that was very nice.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Sure, that was very nice. I'm reading the blueprint for Maryland's future. I'm glad they printed it in August 2023. I found it on my desk today. But it is out there. And the reason I'm bringing this up actually is, I don't know who psychologist said id, ego, superego. Well, this is the id. This is the, let's get everything done regardless of the price tags and everything necessary for the best education public schools in Maryland. Now comes in the ego, and that is, the constraints, the boundaries, the funding, the teachers that are, very difficult to find in places. And there's got to be that balance, and that's that superego. And
Freud.
It's going to be difficult to get there, but fortunately, we participate in the Maryland Association of Counties, and the different legislators, I apologize, different bills and laws that are being created will help us get through this with the intent of not going overboard. But it's a real challenge, and what I think impresses me most is how every jurisdiction is on board saying this cannot be attained, and we can't tax our way through this either. So decisions have to be made on timing. Decisions have to be made on, priorities of getting the blueprint established. I'm asking you, the community, to reach out to us and let us know where you believe those priorities lie, and allow us to be a voice for you as well. Going down to Annapolis, Commissioner Kyler and I attend the MACO, which is the Maryland Association of Counties, legislative, discussions every Wednesday, and there's so much value in us going down there. Yesterday, we went down. It's done via virtual, so we could just do it from here, from home, in our pajamas for all I care. But we don't. We go down there and we meet, with Mike, who's going to come up in just a few minutes.
Yep, yesterday that wasn't your pajamas?
That wasn't.
Okay.
I thought I was looking pretty good. Darn. Well, okay. No, I wasn't in pajamas anyway. So.
Threw him right off track, didn't you?
Poor Commissioner Rothstein is delivering some very poignant and very timely remarks, and here you are throwing everything askew.
I tell you.
Words I don't use, poignant and all that, but anyway. But in closing these remarks is the value of being down there, the value of meeting with our legislators. We met with our legislative team, both Delegates Rose, Tomlinson, and Senator Reedy, which I thought was very valuable, very candid conversations, and sharing with them our priorities for them to also, get in front of others. So it's one team, one fight, whether it's the Board of Education, the Board of County Commissioners, our legislation, and it's all about Carroll County. So
Very well said.
life is good. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, and it was Freud, by the way. Ego, super, ego.
I know.
All right, just making sure.
I know. Go
All right.
ahead, Commissioner Kyler. I'm done.
You're done?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. You two are getting way too close.
I'm trying to stay far away from him, too.
I'm so glad he brought up Blueprint. That was an awesome message. And the only thing I would like to say on it, I said during the process, when the committee was meeting, they know more about education than I'll ever learn. They need to learn about finances, they need to learn about implementation. But in a nutshell, there's always unintended consequences. And the best way to counter that is local control and let each county do what's best for each county. So I hope somehow they come to some common sense and do that.
That was well said.
Thank you. Snow. We've complimented the snow removal people and both facilities and roads, and that's great. I'd like to say something to the building and everyone. It's hard for me to look at snow and opening the building late and such things. I don't remember ever missing work because of snow. But I need to learn empathy for some people. One thing, we need to allow facilities to clean, and we need to, I need to have probably more empathy for people who drive in and out, and I'm not the best driver when the roads are dry, so it doesn't affect me maybe in the snow. But I just wanted to mention that. I've had various meetings throughout last week and others, and various calls, and I want to, if anybody happens to be listening, I owe some people some calls. I'm working on it. I owe a couple people some meetings, and we have enough, I think, that we need to do priorities and do them in order, but I'm willing to meet or talk to anybody, but I just need to have time and follow up and do it. We did Mako in Annapolis, and it was a great meeting, and Mr. Fowler is going to brief us on some of the bills, and it was great, as always, talking with the delegation. And again, I try to say every meeting, I love Carroll County, and one of the reasons, and we discussed it yesterday, we try to all communicate with each other, and we don't always agree, but we try to make sure that on every level in Carroll County, different departments, different elected officials, we all communicate. So that is a good thing. Limeburg Fire Company had their annual banquet on Saturday night, and Rhonda and I got to go. It was a great event, and great people. And they have some young volunteers who are doing a lot of hours, but they also have it was 2 or 3 there that said, this might be my last year of doing that many hours. So it is tough to find new volunteers, and I think we have to keep in mind the focus seems to be on growing EMS and paid employees, et cetera, but the volunteer companies still do a lot and need a lot of fundraising and support to make that happen. So don't think because the county portion is growing that they need less to keep them surviving. I was lucky enough earlier this week to go to a surprise 100th birthday party for John Price. You got that picture? I've been babbling and you've been jumping up pictures. There we go. He was 100 years old, and it's interesting, his wife has the same birthday as he does, but 3 years different, so she's 97. And he was a World War II veteran and was honored by a lot of people. We gave a certificate from the county commissioners, the governor did, the delegation did, a veterans group did, Veterans Independence was there to support him, and it was just a great group. 100 years old, he came in on one of those wheeled walkers that's also a seat, was sitting there eating, started looking around, and I said, what are you looking for? He goes, well, I need my cane. Walked around, talked to everybody with just a cane, and his wife told me, she said, if you want to keep going like we are, because she had no device to walk around, stay active. Don't sit around and do nothing, stay active. And just what an awesome gentleman and his wife, lady, and so many people there to support him. The Veterans Group does a book club at Finksburg Library, and I think they have maybe 25 members, and so on average maybe 15 show up, because this was a special event. I think they had almost all there plus some extras. So just a great night, and there's not many World War II veterans left that you can talk to and hear stories from. He was on like 5 different submarines, and it's just awesome what all they did. And we talked with some young Navy guys, the amount of days, consecutive days they stay on a submarine. I mean, you have to be a special person just to do that part of it. And we argued about Army Marines and who mattered, but I said as the veterans age, that's less of an argument, and they truly support every branch, every conflict. We have young guys who are Middle East, we have Vietnam veterans, we have World War II and Korea veterans, and it's very nice to see them all together. And I'll say again to John Price, happy birthday, and we all agreed we'd all get together next year.
Awesome.
And
awesome. God
I'm
bless
done
him.
my talk. Now we have Ms. Daniel Yates, Extension Housing Outreach Award from the National Extension Association of Family and Consumer Science. And would you guys like to come to the table? I'll read this first, and then you guys can tell us all about it. National Extension Association of Family and Consumer Services awards a certificate to Danielle Yates, Extension Housing Outreach Award, the Eastern Regional winner. So congratulations.
So, I'm here with Danielle Yates, our Bureau Chief of Housing and Community Connections, and we know how great that Danielle is behind the scenes, but it's nice when she gets recognized, and she hates this, when she gets recognized by an external agency. And not only was she the winner of the regional, she was the third place winner of the national award as well. And so with that being said, I just want to say a couple things about Danielle. She doesn't know I'm going to do this. She really, really pushes hard to make sure that people know about the services that they have in housing, that they understand programs, because that's what this award is for. People reach out to her a lot to speak at meetings, to speak at trainings, to provide trainings about how housing choice vouchers work, how the program works, rules, and how people can access services, how they can best position themselves to have supportive housing, and all the different tools that are out there. And I think that she does an awesome job with that. And this is just recognition for work well done. She does a lot of innovative things the expungement clinic that she has coordinated on a quarterly basis in our office for folks so that they have better access to housing, getting those smaller crimes off of their record that have been lingering there, so that they don't have that out there as a deterrent from landlords renting to them. And then also just really the work that she does, where we are facilitating a Chromebook distribution in our whole building over at Distillery, and that's going to be on March 18th for folks. And she's doing outreach with all of her voucher clients to make sure they know about that. And we've networked with the other nonprofits in our building to make sure they're doing outreach about that. But it's all of those pieces of the puzzle that really Danielle does behind the scenes that aren't always recognized, but this is awesome that she was recognized publicly by the extension for her work and her advocacy and training opportunities she provides through them.
And thank you so much for coming and speaking about her. I didn't think she'd stand up on her chair and tell us how great she was and why she's deserving of this, but if you want to, you're welcome to do that.
I just appreciate the opportunity to serve our community. and make sure everyone's aware of the services that we have and understands, because it's not always easy to navigate through the systems that we have locally, state, or federally, and I always just want to assist in any way I can to make sure people get the supports they need. Thank you.
How long you been in this role?
In this role, it's probably been about 10 years.
Okay.
Yes. I started with the county probably about 14 years ago.
Okay.
Commissioners?
Yeah, well, congratulations, and, I'm sorry, did you want to?
No, yeah. We'll start this with just, again, congratulations. I mean, you've been awesome from day one I met you, and the work you do, the selflessness. I mean, talk about a team. I mean, I wish so many others can model what, you do as a team, and it all works so well together. So, Danielle, it's nice that you were recognized today as, the things you've done, but also knowing that you're also part of that team. So, good work.
And I'll add to what Commissioner Rothstein said so very well. With all the times that you both of you have come before us, to talk about anything, it's always nice to see when someone's heart is behind what they're doing, and the compassion that you have, and the love of the work that you do. I mean, it really does. It's really readily apparent. And we talk a lot about careers and jobs and things, but I think I would ascend what you and everybody in the department do to a level of vocation, a calling, as it were, that your heart really is in it. You're doing what God made you to do. And that is a rare and incredible thing these days. And so thank you for everything. Thank you both for everything that you do. And congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
I just have to echo both my colleagues. Obviously, congratulations again, and as Commissioner Vigliotti so eloquently put it, I do think it's a calling, and I know that the people you serve appreciate it. As you know, they appreciate that more than so many other things some days, and just the ability of you to assist them is incredible. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, congratulations. Thank you for your continued service to the county. And thank you, Ms. Steckel, and any department head out there who's willing to recognize the good work that their folks are doing. So thank you both.
Thank you.
And congratulations again, and I think Commissioner Gordon said it well. The people you serve really, really appreciate you. I think, and I'm so glad we take time for things like this in our meeting. Unfortunately, the general population of Carroll County doesn't see what you guys do a lot, and doesn't see what a lot of other departments in Carroll County do, because they do it well. Everybody seems to, you probably don't get on Facebook much because you don't do anything wrong. So that's great, but we need to recognize the people that do things well. So do we get a photo?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds good.
Can come out the nose.
There's always slight trouble with wearing
Now, if you and Commissioner Rothstein, the way you're getting along today, want to stand together and hold hands. Oh, okay.
You gotta get the president. Well, I mean, with Danielle. You're a thorn.
So I can? Man, this is okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Good poem, and I assume she didn't write it for you.
From happiness in Carroll County to interesting times in Annapolis.
Yes. Item 1, legislative update.
Ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth?
Morning, Mike. How are you today?
Morning, good morning. Now, I want to recognize Danielle, too. She's very helpful to me. She reaches out on issues around housing, and actually everyone in citizen services. And remember, they're influential among their peers, too. Many of them have leadership positions in various organizations that deal with these issues across the state. So, and that's not to single out citizen services either, because all of your departments are very aware of what's going on out there, and many have leadership positions as well.
Thank you.
So, where are we? A crossover is the next big date approaching us. There was a pretty big bill dump there. Last week was the last day for bills in the House before they go to rules. So there was a big dump, probably over 300 bills. So our number has ticked up significantly. They're starting to come through, starting to be introduced and sent to the Rules Committee now. So there's probably 10 or 12 in the last 2 days, I guess, that have done that. So should be slowing down. I think the MACO folks told us that there may be 2 more legislative committee meetings, and that would probably do it. So hopefully we're winding down. Let's see. So our public facilities bond, that's never an issue. That's moving forward. The other permit related to withholding permits and licenses for unpaid taxes has become a problem because DLS drafted that bill so poorly. And actually, you talk about the value of meeting with the delegation. We found out that one of the big lobbyists in the state has already gone to the delegation and said, what is this bill? Why are you doing this? What's the problem? And I can't blame him because the way they drafted the bill is it's kind of ridiculous, frankly. So I sent amendments over to them to correct it. They still haven't corrected it to what we need. So we're going to be round 2 on the amendments. But I think the problem may be that people will be operating off of the original draft. So at the hearing, they may come in and, be opposing a bill that really doesn't exist anymore. So probably enough about that. We'll continue to try to work
And I'd
on
like
it.
to say one more thing about that. That's about the intention, property taxes that are delinquent, and permits. For some reason, several of the local contractors have gotten the message that if they have any tax issues, they probably cannot bid Carroll County work. That's not the intention. It's confusing how it's written, but it's not even, I don't know how you get that out of what's written.
I don't know how they make
but-
that leap, but apparently some have.
Yeah, that's going around, and I owe some people some calls, but that's not the intention, nor is it what's written.
Absolutely.
Hopefully not, it won't be what's corrected and written.
And it's specifically personal property taxes, which are
Yes,
only
right.
charged to businesses, and it's only when they're, no longer in good standing, and they wouldn't be able to pull a building permit. So we're talking about a pretty narrow group of individuals.
And there was confusion, which I think Delegate Stanko may have voiced about early, that you'd have to come in and defend yourself on that, on personal property taxes, and that's not the intention either.
Part of it's
Pay 'em.
part of it is the drafting issue. And then the other part, which is much larger, like you're, Sharon, is playing telephone operator. One person says to one person, says to one person, all of a sudden, it becomes
Turns into something
completely different than what the intent is. So I appreciate Commissioner Kyler sharing that, to the community, because it's not what we are working to do.
Not to extend this, but if I am correct, there are several other counties who already have this ability, and so why it got so confused is confusing to me. I mean, we should have used, DLS should have just been able to say, and add Carroll County here.
So you're doubly confused.
I'm frequently doubly confused. Today I am, again.
So I've actually asked Senator Reedy's aide,
Yeah.
just connect me with the drafter. Let's get it
And
resolved.
you should possibly run to Annapolis and help draft these bills and straighten them out. Because I think that's been, and they just have a lot of bills, and they're probably, but that's been more of an issue the last few years than it traditionally was.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know their building was demolished, they're scattered around the campus, maybe they don't talk to each other as much.
Is it
Maybe they have
maybe
new
be-
people, I don't know.
Is it maybe because, I mean, this is a pretty simple, straightforward thing, and they're not used to dealing with simple, straightforward legislation?
It could be, the simple, straightforward bill is rare, so, as well. So moving along, our purchasing threshold bill is moving through. I don't see any problems there either. So while we're on taxes, this is a bill that I wanted to raise to you primarily because it's authorizing only. You'll see it gives counties the ability to change their tax structure, and I want to make sure you know this is authorizing. And actually, this is part of MACO's effort to try to simplify and give flexibility to counties in their abilities and how they assess and collect taxes. So essentially, it creates the ability to set special tax rates for subclasses of property, and you'll see them laid out as to what those, what those subclasses are. That special rate can't exceed 12.5 cents per $100 of assessed value. So MACO has worked with sponsors on this and with the committees. So this is really for those counties that are looking for the ability to try to help them meet their blueprint obligations, quite frankly. And what you'll see in a lot of these bills, these tax bills, if the proceeds have to be, go to either transportation or education, you'll see in some of those bills, because those are the two areas that I think are going to impact the counties the most. House Bill 1018, another one which is one of those bills that will not go anywhere. It says that all personal property in the possession of a person engaged in a manufacturing business that's a small or medium-sized enterprise is exempt from all property tax, including any special taxing district property tax. So that's a straight opposition across the board. House Bill 638, state transfer tax. This is a bill that Commissioner Gordon raised to my attention. It would effectively create a progressive tax structure for the transfer tax. Right now, the transfer tax is the same no matter what the price of the property that's being sold. This would change that. The sponsor admitted that her amendment would correct a real problem here, which is the bill would move funds that now go to these four areas: program open space, the agricultural preservation, rural legacy, and heritage conservation. And you'll see how those numbers would change under her bill. She admitted that was not the intent. In fact, she'd probably get thrown out of her county if it went forward that way. So she agreed to amend it to keep those numbers whole. But her intent is again, equity. That word comes across. So she sets up these progressive rates, the higher the property sale, up to, I think, 40 million on a sale. The questions were really aimed at the way she's got it set up and the way the market on homes is increasing, that what one would consider a middle-class home at maybe $350,000 is now up to, upwards of 500 in some cases. So there was a lot of skepticism on this. It's interesting that MACO didn't really take it up. I think they believe that it's a little too weighty for this delegate to take forward. She is a sole sponsor. She doesn't have a cross file. So I wanted to raise that because Senator Gordon brought it up. Senator, I promoted you.
You did.
Commissioner Gordon, or demoted you, depending on your point.
Maybe, I don't know.
So at first glance, this is problematic, but I think pragmatically, we probably don't have to worry about it, particularly if it rebalances the general fund and the special fund in the way she claims it will. But we'll keep an eye on it just in case. A number of bills that are positive toward the issue of child care and pre-K. House Bill 902, right now, apparently there's a sort of a conflict between federal and state funds on the Head Start program. This would eliminate that conflict so that these Head Start pre-K programs can accept both state and federal funds, and if there is a state standard that conflicts with the federal standards, that it would relieve the program of meeting those state standards and make the federal standards override. And then Senate Bill 882 and House Bill 1139, there is a current pilot program for this that they make permanent. It's really intended to boost the number of child care programs in the state. It assists child care operators in their startup. There are requirements for staff education and curriculum that they'll be assisted in meeting through state assistance. And then Senate Bill 803 and House Bill 909, this is an issue around funding of schools, and it avoids baking what are non-recurring costs into your MOE. And non-recurring costs would be large purchase of laptops, for instance. That's a one-time purchase. You wouldn't want that to go into the calculation for you to meet your obligation to fund. Also, there's a report that currently goes to the governor and the General Assembly on what waiver requests have been put forward and what their final determinations are. Now the counties will be included in that report, so it gets ahead of your budgeting cycle. Now we get into some interesting ones. Senate Bill 1074 and House Bill 991. This is related to the issue that was brought to the delegation about the application of chicken rendering on agricultural fields. There's one actor in this in Carroll County, apparently, so there's a community that's really up in arms about this. There are also some problems on some Eastern Shore communities. I think Cecil and Caroline County also have some problems with this. So this bill is interesting. It's bipartisan. Delegate Love out of, I think, Montgomery County, and our delegation is on this. So I think it has a good chance. So it establishes a permit regime for this that it has a ton of conditions on it, including requiring a permit for each site where it occurs. There are several public notices. There's performance bonding associated with it. Talks about how it has to be applied. It can't be just applied. It has to be injected. Very, very high standard here on this. To me, as I look through it, I think, man, this is going to become very expensive to do, which I suppose is the intent. So we'll be watching that, but I think that this may be very helpful in trying to solve that problem.
And I think and Wycomico County may have done something locally for this, and the people being affected by this are being very badly affected. The concern is, which I'm not sure what we or Annapolis can do about it, the season to do this starts early mid-March. So none of this, it may start the way it's been, and what I'm hearing from the Secretary of Agriculture is they don't have enough staff to go out and enforce this all over the place. So I don't know if there's anything we can do or if there's anything they can do to try to put a hold on what's going to happen in another month.
You reminded me, as part of this is to transfer the responsibility to MDE from agriculture, which puts it more in line with the ability to inspect and issue permits and so forth.
Yes.
Important point. And I think also possibly give some authority to locals on it as well.
Yes. Yeah, just not happen quickly enough for some of the people. And then I think maybe MDA will still be responsible for storage, which I haven't heard is an issue in Carroll County, but in other counties, people are storing this in manure pits, not in tanks, and
And
they
open tanks, right.
yeah, they want to
That's
go.
Caroline, I think.
Yeah, they want to go and fight that. So, yeah, I hope this helps.
Yeah, we're not alone. We're not alone, that's true. Let's see, Senate Bill 1082 and House Bill 1328. So I think this is Senator Hester's bill. We talked about the solar issue, utility scale solar, and, an effort to try to develop state standards around things like setbacks and screening and concerns about agricultural land. And I think this bill starts to try to get at that. It creates a commission that will start to look at all that. Big considerations in here for agriculture. Talks about making sure cover crop is installed on agricultural fields where solar is installed, that pollinators are taken into consideration. Again, it's I think it's a good step toward trying to address the concerns that the locals have. And as you read through the bill, you can see those concerns are starting to find their way in this. One of the things we talked about, if you try to set a state standard for screening, you got to take into consideration geography, because screening on the Eastern Shore is not screening in Western Maryland, and this does that. So that in itself is very good. It also requires the state to put some skin in the game and to identify those state lands where it would be appropriate for this. It is a very big bill, so obviously it will go through some changes. It may even be one of those bills that has to be discussed more fully in the interim and come back next year with something that's more fully developed. But there's a lot of energy behind trying to deal with this. You'll see the one coming right behind takes a 180-degree approach to this. So House Bill 1407 is by the Chair of Economic Matters, C.T. Wilson of Charles County. This would eliminate all of your opportunity to zone anything that's a Tier 1 renewable. Tier 1 is solar, wind, methane, waste to energy, poultry litter, burning poultry litter. This is a signal. This is a signal bill, frankly. We're not sure whether he's very serious about this or whether he has some other ideas, even unconnected to the bill. There was some talk about this being tied to cannabis in some way. I'm not sure how that connection is made. But this essentially takes you completely out of the mix, and the state takes all authority for these Tier 1. So practically speaking, that would mean that you could come into a residential neighborhood with a waste to energy or a poultry litter burning plant, methane burning. It's just, draw your own conclusions. It's pretty bad either way. So obviously, this one's being strongly opposed, but we'll see as this develops what the real intent was here. Whether he's just tired of hearing about counties being concerned about these things or not, I'm not sure. But the bill won't go through as it's drawn up, obviously. Senate Bill 906. So again, housing. So this one would require the counties to perform an inventory of all vacant commercial buildings in the county and then develop a plan to convert those buildings to residential uses. Pretty unworkable, pretty expensive, pretty unworkable. You certainly don't have the staff or the expertise to do this kind of thing. And frankly, a lot of these properties, the owners are waiting for market conditions to improve before they develop this. I don't know if you read about this, but Lutherville Station in Timonium is sort of a poster child for this. It's a big multi-use development that's a former shopping center. And so all of these issues come into play. Housing, transportation, because it's on a light rail line. As I read through that article, I thought, boy, this sounds exactly like the kind of thing that they're trying to apply this to.
So it would require the counties to, if the bill goes through, it would require the counties to make the inventory of the vacant commercial buildings and then require the county to convert them for,
So develop a plan.
okay. But
So
not,
would you bring in developers to work toward converting them?
so, I don't know, it was about 10 or 15 years ago, Frederick, the city of Frederick had some kind of, and it may have been called receivership, I don't quite remember, but their intent was to take abandoned buildings or buildings that were blighted and to take them over as the city, refurbish, renovate, refinish them, and then either rent them or sell them. And I don't know where that program ever went, but this almost sounds like it's an echo of that program in a way, that it's requiring the government to step in to take over certain buildings and to get involved in the market.
Yeah, I don't remember Frederick, but I could imagine Frederick City doing something like that. Certainly Baltimore City has done that. Cleveland was very successful with a program similar to that. You have to be very careful because it's privately owned property, so there are a lot of constitutional hurdles you have to get over
Right.
and private ownership things. But when the properties, generally speaking, and Tim can add more to this on the legal end, but generally speaking, when the properties are literally abandoned, then there are mechanisms that jurisdictions can go through to, and there's, in places like inner cities that have areas of total blight, it can really be a health hazard, a fire hazard. We saw several firefighters in Baltimore City fell to their death in a tragic fire a couple of years ago, in an abandoned property like that. So there is a public benefit to doing some of that. But again, it's a very touchy area because you have to make sure that you have the right, to enter its private property until it's deemed it's not. In some, and luckily here we still have a process for that.
Yeah, I mean, this bill is not good for us.
Right.
This is not,
Yeah.
I mean,
This would be
let
very-
Baltimore City or somebody else have it where there's properties that they determine could be good for appropriate housing, but, that's not Carroll County.
Yeah, I think one of
The
the,
resources to be able to do it too.
yeah, which is, I think one of the thoughts is, well, let's have the state pay
Yeah.
for this. House Bill 1147, another problematic bill. So a couple of PFAS bills in this year. This one would prohibit the use, the supply, or the sale of materials containing PAH or PAH or PFAS. So there are Carroll playgrounds that would be affected. Mitigation would be pretty expensive. We would not be the only jurisdiction impacted, obviously. This may be, again, a problem. I think that one of the suggestions will be state assistance in doing this. Frankly, is the juice worth the squeeze on this? I would say no, but we'll have to keep our eye on this one. Senate Bill 956, House Bill 1153. So again, another PFAS bill. This one would limit PFAS, any water with PFAS in it to be discharged into your publicly owned wastewater treatment plants. So an industrial user is going to have to remove PFAS below, I believe it's 4 parts per billion?
No, trillion,
Trillion.
per trillion.
Yeah, the threshold is really difficult to reach for anybody, frankly. But this would require them to remove that before it gets into your wastewater treatment plant. Good for us, a challenge for the user, but we'll see how this one proceeds as well. Senate Bill 1054, House Bill 1265. This is an idea that came out of the Solar Incentive Task Force. It's by the delegate that was, I think, a strong participant in that, let's say. I think there are a couple of, at least several counties in the state that are having challenges with residential roof-mounted solar permits. There are a lot of permit applications coming in. They have a backlog. They have a lengthy time for approval. Solar industry is not happy with that. This Solar App is a federally developed permitting program that a county would adopt. It has precise timelines on reviewing and issuing the permit. This bill would require all the counties to adopt this. It would be a challenge for us to adopt it, and frankly, it really wouldn't make a difference because we have a quick turnaround on these permits and we don't have any backlog. So the amendments that are going to be proposed will to be, number one, if you already have a program in place that does this, you'll be exempted. It should only be in place as long as the federal government supports the app. So if they withdraw, if they don't update it anymore, or they withdraw, because I think there's a federal grant associated with adopting this as well. And then also, if you don't have an issue, if you don't have a backlog, then you really shouldn't have to adopt it. So we're hopeful that's how this ends up. I think I've reached the end. Have I?
I've got a question for you.
Certainly.
Going back to Senate Bill 803, House Bill 909, this issue of the MOE and the non-recurring costs. I mean, I've never understood nor agreed with the fact that a non-recurring cost is tied to MOE, because then you're paying for things you're not getting each year, and that's something we're obligated to do. So what's the chance that that's going to pass in this General Assembly?
I think,
That-
from what I understand, good. There's a good
Okay.
chance of passing.
Okay. Because that could impact, I don't know how that would work retroactively. I don't know if that's something that would benefit us in taking a look at in our budget negotiations. But again, why are we paying for something over and over again that's not a non-recurring cost?
Exactly.
Okay.
The other bill that we discussed, and highlighted in lots of conversations, has been this library,
The freedom to read.
Freedom Read. And it got, as we shared, I want to make sure, I'm clear, and we also share a clear message to anybody that's listening as well, is that MACO's taking no position, but adding a letter, because that's what MACO would do. We're not going to say support or oppose. That's a common theme within MACO because of how MACO works. But the letter, and, I can share what I talked about, it wasn't very clear whether they were talking public libraries, school libraries, and I think the intent was public libraries, but then it got muddied and added into, it could be translated or interpreted, as public libraries and school libraries. And I'm like, yeah, that's not a good thing. Public libraries, you can do what you want. We don't have the responsibilities and authorities over them. But school libraries is a very different animal. And, we do. have those responsibilities, at least with the funding mechanisms that we have to the schools. My intent in the discussion was to clear up that bill to ensure that we're talking only public libraries and not school libraries. The challenge is if we inject further into this, they may say, oh, that's a good idea, and let's add all of it into one mix. It's kind of a balancing. This was a conversation we were having, was it's not be careful what you ask for. It's, you may end up with a hollow victory, as one of my mentors shares with me. You feel good about it, but you're not going to get the results that you want.
Pyrrhic victory, yeah.
So understanding it is important, but going after, something, you may get the results you want in a battlefield, but the war you're going to lose. So I don't know if you have thoughts, or Commissioner Kyler, you were part of those conversations as well. We got to be careful, on how we work this one.
Yes, I agree, and I think it's two distinctly different arguments on what public libraries should do and what school libraries should do. And I think each side of that should stay out of the other's business. But again, I'm not sure we want to yell and scream about it,
Right.
because I'm not sure in Annapolis which way it would go.
Right.
Yeah,
What did I do?
No, that's right. We got to be careful on the results,
There's a few
because
things I'd like to say, but I
well,
won't.
we understand. The facts are there. We know who's writing the bill. We know the attitude of that person, or that, the sentiment that they may want to drive towards us or other communities. And I don't want to be, I don't want to be pushed around. And I also don't want to make it messier by saying, I'm going to beat my drums and say, keep it separate. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's a good idea. And they merge it together, and then we're, SOL. And, so being aware of it is important. The community understanding our position is important, but also our, efforts. We have to understand what happens down in Annapolis. I'm not tap dancing around it. I'm just very concerned that we push harder, we may end up getting the results we do not want. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was indicated to me that some folks feel that I was not clear in how I presented the bill to you, but not in what was in error.
Right.
I still stick to the way I framed it. It's written, the intent is to apply to all libraries, to public libraries, to school libraries, and to library resource centers. It protects librarians from retaliation, and that would include school librarians. The way the bill is written, the fiscal penalty would not apply to schools because they are not funded the way the bill describes the fiscal, or the funds get withheld. So, as I read that, it would say that, it applies to that librarian, but the penalty does not apply to the schools. That's how I read the bill.
Yeah.
If I'm in error, I hope somebody would reach out and
No, I think
explain to me
you're-
where I'm
I think you're
wrong.
right. It's just unfortunate that they put both of them in one bill. If you have an intent to do something with libraries, then focus on which libraries you're talking about, because they're very distinct, There's other programs that are out there that are funded through the school system, which we have a lot of responsibility and authority to fund, but then there's matching ability, services that we don't. And, you can govern that in a very different way, and you should. But this, they combined, and I don't like it. I think it it creates confusion, and it puts everything on a even playing field where, again, we have responsibility for one and not the other. So that's my 2 cents.
And a big part of the intention is to take away local control.
Right.
And I struggle with the groups. We want local control, we want local control. Oh, on this subject, I don't care, let's take it away. And that's the mindset. And we gotta fight it properly, and
Yep.
being more quiet may be the proper way to fight this.
We'll keep watching it, see what
Yeah.
when the bill, so the bill's been heard, or will be heard.
Right.
So we'll be watching the,
Yeah.
And if it's necessary for us to get involved, then we certainly will. I certainly don't mind raising a voice about it if it comes to that, so.
Well, that's my whole point is we may not want to raise that voice because that can turn things in a direction that we do not want it to turn. So just being mindful of that.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that if it comes to it, then, and we do need to, then we will. If it comes to it.
So, okay.
It's very diplomatic
Any
of
more
you, though.
questions on legislation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
We now have the budget update for second quarter, and I'm hoping it's all upbeat news. What, I got the wrong name? Man,
I thought I felt,
What you guys were doing?
I am not Commissioner Vigliotti. It's, and I'm sure he doesn't want to be me.
well, maybe for that mustache, I don't know.
So, we've been promised all positive news, maybe a joke interjected, and we go through our quarterly update.
Ted Upbeat Zaleski, that's what they call me,
Is that what they call you?
among other things. You know, on that bill about non-recurring costs, I'm gonna have to take a look at that. Because there's already a provision in maintenance of effort for non-recurring costs, it's been in place for many, many years. So I'm not sure exactly what
Okay.
this is supposed to do.
You have to identify them separately, and they don't go into MOE as it stands, so I don't know
Okay.
how much more this protects.
It's
from
interesting.
that. Yeah.
Okay, so we're past halfway into the year. We're updating you on halfway into the year. Starting point, very big picture. We're estimating right now about $7.5 million we'll have left at the end of the year, either revenue in excess or expenditures not spent. About $5 million of that is already built into your plan, the 1% that we carry forward every year, leaving about $2.5 million of what would potentially be unassigned fund balance. Now, there are still big questions out there, so don't fall in love with $2.5 million. On the revenue side, property tax, we expect to come in pretty much on budget, which is typically the story. Income tax is the big question mark. Right now, we are assuming that we're going to come in about $2.5 million less than budget. But I don't have any sense of confidence that right now I can really tell you that's where we're going to end up, just looking at what we know right now. We have a big distribution coming at the end of this month, one of our big quarterly distributions. The most recent thing that happened is we got a reconciling distribution that was actually down about $10 million from last year. This all gets complicated because that same reconciling distribution last year was up significantly from the year before. So we're down against up. Yeah, it's hard to know exactly what to do with that. But I think the big message that I'm taking from this distribution is that we have been over-distributed. There's more come in than we were due, because this is a fairly big adjustment to make. So again, I don't want to sit here and pretend that I can tell you what this is going to mean, but it does seem to signal a shift in where we have been. Recordation, we're looking to come in almost $3 million below budget. This change is not a surprise. The magnitude, maybe. We had several really strong years of recordation. We had 2 or 3 years ago was, I think, the second largest year we've ever had. We knew that wasn't going to continue. We've been backing off of our expectations. But it looks like this year could be the lowest collections we've had in about a decade. Other revenues, little changes here and there, but nothing of any significance. So right now, we're looking at about $5 million under budget on revenues. On the expenditure side, a lot of what we anticipate not being spent. And it is a lot easier to have some confidence on the expenditure side than it is on the revenue side. There's still room for surprises, but there aren't the same kind of uncertainties. But a lot of open positions. We're in a stronger position than we were a couple years ago, but we still have a lot of open positions. The reserve for contingencies is largely intact. Debt service is lower than we planned on. That's just a matter of timing of when we're spending the money and selling the bonds. That matters to you this year. Over the course of your plan, we're not expecting savings. It's just a shifting of, we were going to spend $1 this year, now it's going to be spent next year or 2 years from now. So we're looking at expenditure savings of about $9 million. So the combination of those two takes you back to where I started, about 7.5, and leaving about $2.5 million that would go to unassigned fund balance. We'll be coming to you in the not too distant future with an overview for the FY '25 budget and 25 through 30 plan. Not too long after that, coming to you with the recommended budget. We will have seen this next income tax distribution before those things happen, so we're hoping that will be some help in setting the stage for you.
Speaking of recommended budgets, Board of Ed met last night, and I think voted 5-0 to approve their budget submittal without changes?
Yes, it's the same thing you've already seen. There actually was some discussion before they got to the vote. Board of Education member Donna Savigny was talking about her concerns about expectations for county funding and how they reconcile everything that's going on. But in the end, they all did vote for it.
Well, she can be assured that we may not give them what they're asking for.
Yes, and I took their conversation as understanding that they had no promises of seeing what they're asking for.
Mr. Zaleski, you mentioned the revenues being $5 million under. Did you mean for second quarter, or the expectation for the end of the fiscal year?
Expectation for the end of the year, right. So, yeah, everything I was talking about here would be, where do we see things ending?
Okay. And can you go back to reserve for contingencies again? What's the figure on that?
There's $5.2 million remaining. You've pulled on it for 3 things so far this year. There's about $50,000 for the solar-powered speed signs the sheriff wanted. There was almost $200,000 for that sinkhole we had to deal with. And then about $50,000 for the circuit court radios that you approved.
You said 5.2? Okay, thank you, sir.
Anything else I can offer?
Commissioners, questions, comments?
Thank you for always doing such hard work. I mean, it's not fun, I know, not fun having to report
It's fun for me.
news that is less than positive, but I very much appreciate everything that you guys do for us.
And I assume the quiet one concurs with everything said.
Yes. If I didn't,
She's
you would
pulling
know.
the strings.
The strong, silent type.
Yes. Yes, I'll echo Commissioner Vigliotti's comments about thanking you all, and that's always very appreciated. At some point, could we get an update? I know we hit back in, I guess it was the summer, the board had approved impact fees. I'd like to see where that's kind of moving along, what kind of numbers we're seeing from that. I have a thought there, but I'd actually like to see the information versus my thoughts. And then you mentioned recordations, the lowest it's been roughly in 10 years, and it's, what, 3 million below what I guess you all had assumed the budget would be for that. I assume this is correct, but is it fair to base that on the fact that when we're looking at less than 150 homes being sold, we're not seeing a lot of transfer, which would cause that? Is that a
Yeah,
fair assumption?
Exactly.
Okay.
The number of sales is dropping now. It's still, I mean, we lived it, we know it happened. It's
Sure.
still a surprise to me that we had the levels of activity that we did. But that is dropping, and really dropping pretty fast right now. Now, flip side of this, we don't expect this to continue either. You know, we'll be talking more about this in a few weeks, but we're probably going to be looking at settling in our projections at maybe $14 million a year or something like that, which is more than we think we're going to get this year, but a good bit less than we have been experiencing.
And as most of us know, but I just want to mention this for anybody listening or watching, lack of inventory, housing, all this is not a Carroll County specific issue. This is, county, state, federal. We're in a position right now where the entire country is kind of facing these kind of situations. So I would assume that affects everybody's projections when it comes to recordation or some of the other incomes we receive.
Yeah, I'm sure there's variations across the state, but yeah, I think it's a common scenario. And on your impact fee question, I have not looked at it lately, but yeah, we can see what the actual
Okay.
collections are. I don't, kind of related ideas, I don't expect
Sure.
that we've collected a great deal, though.
I appreciate that.
I guess more of a academic question is, there are 5 counties that do not have transfer taxes, right? Out of the 5 counties, if you can take a look at the recordation tax, have they offset the recordation taxes like into a much higher level that would offset the transfer tax? And the reason I brought that up is I was talking with the county executive from Frederick County who doesn't have transfer tax. And she says, yeah, but our recordation is very high. And I just don't know what high means.
I'd have to check, but I don't think that those counties have more or less doubled their recordation to
Yeah.
make up for transfer.
Yeah, I wouldn't think they would double, but if they, just take a look, just so we are in a understanding.
we can do
Because
that.
we're not gonna be going to legislators and saying, hey, incorporate transfer tax, that's what we want. That's not what we want, especially right now. We wanna deal with what we have. But I'm just curious how other counties have done it, and the only one I know is what the Frederick County executive told me, so.
Yep, we'll check it out.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you.
So item 3, the Nathan Chris Baker Foundation State Bond Bill Award. Did you write that?
I cannot claim credit for that one. I could give it a shot at refining it, though.
Our director of Rec and Parks is not here. Huh? Do you mind if we skip to the next one?
Sure, sure. Okay.
And
Sure.
come back?
Okay, item 4, updates to the annual plan for fiscal year 2024 for the Carroll County Bureau of Housing.
Sir.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning, thank you.
I love homework.
This is a big assignment.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. All right, good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again.
I'm joined here this morning with Danielle Yates, as you know, our Bureau Chief for Housing Community Connections, and then also Paul Moffett, who is our Housing Manager. And we're here this morning to review the updates to our annual plan for fiscal year 2024 for the Bureau of Housing. This annual plan does need to be displayed for public comment for a 45-day period based on federal regulation 24 CFR 903. As the Board of County Commissioners, you serve as our governing body for our Pennsylvania for our Public Housing Authority. And you've done so since the inception of our Housing Choice Voucher Program. You signed the documentation, you're the signatory authority for this program, and as part of that, we have to do annual updates to our administrative plan. The reason we come before you with these updates is so that we are updating our plan so it's reflective of, number one, what we're actually doing and seeing that the needs are in our Housing Choice Voucher Program. These updates really reflect the operations of the program, but also best practices. One of the things that's a little bit different for this year is that the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act of 2016 was signed into law with the final rule published in 2023. This law required updates to every housing plan that we had to implement. And so what we want to do today is walk through the areas where we had some flexibility in the language we used with those requirements and tell you what we selected and make sure you approve of that. And then also the one other item that operationally we identified that we feel needed to be updated in our administrative plan. So Danielle's going to walk us through those changes. And if you have questions, we will certainly entertain them. If you have recommendations, we can entertain that as well. We'd be happy to do that.
So, good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
As Selena noted, the fiscal year 24 annual plan updates reflect 6 adjustments in total related to the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. As she noted, this year, HUD published the final rule for the Housing Opportunities Through Modernization Act of 2016, which is known as HOTMA. HOTMA made numerous amendments to Sections 2, 8, and 16 of the United States Housing Act of 1937. They included changes to income calculation, net family assets, and income reviews. So we have adjusted language within our administrative plan to reflect these required changes, but there were 5 adjustments to language related to HOTMA policy change that our housing authority made and had some discretion on. So the first is in Chapter 6, which is income subsidy determination. We have decided that no additional time over the required 90 days will be given for any hardship exemptions. In Chapter 7, which is verification procedures, our public housing authority will not allow self-certification of assets under $50,000, and we will complete our own income verification for clients. In Chapter 11, which is reexamination, our administrative plan previously indicated a dollar amount threshold to determine when a decrease would be changed. This had to be adjusted because HOTMA wanted a percentage requirement threshold instead. So we have decided or determined that the adjustment to this threshold would be at 10%. In addition, we have extended the deadline for reporting decreases for the change to be effective for the upcoming month. Meaning that the deadline to report these changes was extended from the 19th of the month to the 25th to make that adjustment. And the final adjustment that we have determined, and this is not related to HOTMA, was in Chapter 4, which is applications, waitlist, and tenant selection. Under our special admissions section, we have designated 5 vouchers annually to assist adults that are 62 and older that are in our adult-only emergency shelter. These will be referrals that we obtain from our Community Action Agency, which is HSP Inc. of Carroll County, who currently operates our emergency shelters. That's just a quick overview of the adjustments that we have made. Is there any other questions that we can answer or elaborate on to help you?
Commissioners?
No, I thought that was pretty thorough.
Okay, thank you.
I did want to make just a special note about the shelters and the older adult, where we're going to do move-on voucher strategy with those 5 additional vouchers earmarked for older adults in the shelter. We have noticed that there have been an uptick of older adults becoming homeless. And so in order to address that, because they're typically single, they're not a family, and with our needs assessment for other move-on strategy vouchers, this particular population was one that we were not seeing becoming eligible at the top of the list to get into these vouchers. And so we wanted to make sure we had a structure in place where they could get into this opportunity. So I think, this is a work in progress. We're also looking at some other pieces of that puzzle, but this is one way we're trying to address that.
How are we defining older? Is it 16 over or
So it's 62 years of age.
62? I apologize. Okay, got it.
And I'll just say very briefly, I'm grateful that your attention is being paid to those individuals. I mean, again, it's one of those things that a lot of us take for granted. You get to a certain age and you're set and you're comfortable and you have no real concerns, but it's obviously not true. And, so thank you for paying attention to those individuals. With that, I'll make a motion to approve the display of the annual plan for 45 days for public review and comment, and to announce a public hearing on April 4th, 2024, to consider approval to submit the FY24 annual plan to HUD.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back to quiz you on your homework of reading that entire plan.
Oh, so it's a comprehensive test? It's not chapter by chapter?
Want to read front to back?
I'm just seeing which one's thicker, the blueprint or this, but this one's more important to me, so.
We love homework.
Commissioner Kyler, I think Commissioner
Okay, if we can drop
Vigliotti,
back to item 3?
Commissioner Vigliotti has an old soul. He has an old soul the way he was talking.
Yes, yes.
You know.
I do my best to live in the future, even beyond my years.
Yes. Nathan Chris Foundation?
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
God bless you.
We're here, or at least I'm here this morning to go over approval acceptance of the Nathan C. Baker Foundation State Bond Award. Just to give you a little background, the foundation approached the Department of Recreation and Parks interested in installing a playground at Freedom Park. And they donated a large sum of money, and also a anonymous donor donated a lot of, like $100,000 along with it, along with some donations that's come over since the last year. So we right now have about $257,998 in the Park Legacy Fund. The funding they're also looking to do, because the foundation actually applied for the state bond bill, and then along with the $75,000 would go from the bond bill, the foundation will also add on another $75,000 to it, to the current amount, which will fully fund the playground at Freedom Park with no county taxpayer money involved.
That's awesome.
This also includes, the playground is adaptive.
Correct? Yes.
That's a large part of this, so.
Yes.
Yeah, this is going to be a state-of-the-art playground, all bells and whistles, but focused also on being adaptive.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this is quite the playground. And they've gotten way more expensive anyway, but I think a typical
Yeah.
one at a school's probably
150.
a third of this or less than half, and so this is awesome.
Yeah, playground equipment is very expensive over the years, and of course, this one had the port-in-place servicing, so it's very ADA accessible to all the equipment that's on there.
And just on a side note, I mean, I've been familiar with the Nathan Chris Baker Foundation for quite some time, since it's began, and the dad's, I think he's still active as a Howard County cop, and he was also my son's wrestling coach, so really stand-up family.
It's a great family. We've been working with them since I've been here for the last couple of months. They're awesome.
They're amazing. So I'm going to move the Board of County Commissioners accept the Maryland State Bond Bill for the Nathan Chris Baker Foundation.
Second.
Commissioner Gordon can
I was
ask.
like, can we tie that any better?
Oh, you beat him. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you very
you.
much.
I know I caused you guys out of sync, but hey.
Item 5, ordinance change for commercial zone bulk requirements, and we do have a caller with public comment. Chris?
That's correct, Commissioner. Audrey Novak, if you could use *6 to unmute, you'll have 3 minutes for public comment this morning.
And while she,
Good morning, Commissioners.
go ahead,
Thank
sorry.
you for the opportunity to comment virtually since I am unable to attend today. Regarding the vote, I would once again ask for the following. Number one, limit the maximum height to 35 feet and the setback to 50 feet. 15 feet setback is not enough. Number two, exempt only existing buildings from the zoning revisions. No exemptions until shovels are in the ground. No expansion of grandfathering to include proposed development. Number three, from the beginning of this process, we have asked for a change of zoning for the large multi-level storage facilities to be limited to areas zoned industrial. While bulk requirement changes are a step in the right direction, limiting the zoning to industrial will also address our community's concerns regarding traffic, water runoff, resident safety, and conformity to the character of the surrounding properties. I urge you to request that the Planning Commission look into making the change to limit large multi-storage units to property zoned industrial, as these buildings are not appropriate in areas zoned C2. Once again, thank you for your continued effort to keep Carroll County as a place where citizens and commercial endeavors can exist cooperatively.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment cards in here? Okay. So, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We're here for your deliberation and decision on changes to Chapter 158 of the County Code. That's our zoning ordinance. And this is specifically with regard to changes to the bulk requirements in the commercial zone. Just a really quick timeline here. As you recall, back in May of last year, this issue was referred to the Planning Commission for their discussion and recommendations. They discussed this at 4 meetings, and that was in July, August, September, and October of last year. They forwarded a recommendation, and you all held a public hearing on January 25th. The record was held open for 10 days, and we are here before you for your decision on this. Mary's going to give you just a really quick presentation, circling back around on a couple of questions you had during the public hearing time, and then a review of what the changes are.
Thank you. You have seen this map before, but I just wanted to give it to you again because there was some question about how many properties are being affected by this. So our research showed that there are 225 of the 1,106 commercially zoned properties in the county that are adjacent to residential districts. Now, that's both developed and undeveloped, but we included all of them because there is redevelopment, which is 20.34% of the county's commercial properties. And I think this question was asked too. Most of these properties are C2, and the average C2 parcel is 1.2 acres. Also, at the last meeting, you had asked, there's a provision in the code that allows the 35-foot height limit for residential structures to be increased. And I think Commissioner Vigliotti asked, or somebody asked, how often that's used. Our zoning administrator has said that there is one recent case of somebody increasing that by adding to these setbacks, which is what's proposed here.
Mary, you said the 225 commercial properties, they're not all C2?
No, they're all C1,
They're
C2,
C1
C3.
to C3.
We do have a breakdown, but we didn't know if that was particularly
No,
relevant.
that's okay. So 225 commercial properties adjacent to residential properties.
Yes, and you can see that, I mean, they're in corridors, but they are throughout the county.
Yeah, okay,
This map.
okay, thanks.
So this was also asked a few examples of properties, and I think Chris had presented this to you at an earlier work session. This is in Sykesville. It's the Northrop Realty Building. It is 40 feet high. It's in the C2 district, and it's adjoining the R10,000 district. Another example is the Carroll Medical Arts Center. This is 32 feet high in the C2. It's adjoined by I-1, C2, and R10,000, and this is in Commissioner District 3. And then the last example we pulled up was some medical offices in the Westminster area, which this is 50-foot high, this height, in the C2 district, and it is surrounded by R10,000 and R20,000. So the language that was set to public hearing that's before you today is to, well, the first is the 35-foot height maximum. This is the maximum starting height in the majority of the residential districts. That was the rationale behind that. Increasing side yard setbacks from 10 to 15 feet, which was what they were before the, some code changes were made several years ago. Grandfathering existing buildings, and that would prevent any existing buildings from becoming non-conforming. And then to provide more flexibility, allowing increasing each side or rear yard setback that's adjacent to a residential district by 1 foot for a 1 foot height increase. So it still may not exceed 50 feet, but to obtain the 50 feet, the side and rear yard setbacks adjacent to the residential districts would have to be at least 30 feet. So that sliding scale we've been talking about. And this, again, allows for more flexibility. This is what came out of the Planning Commission, and this is what was before you at public hearing several weeks ago. So next steps is your discussion and decision on this.
So can I guess I'll begin by asking a question, just because I'm kind of curious about this. Commissioner Kyler had alluded to this during our last open session during the public hearing about whether architectural details count as the maximum height of a building. For example, if a church has a cross, whether that cross is the maximum height, 50 foot, or if like the peak of a roof counts as even though the bulk of the building is not the maximum height, but like the angle of the roof is.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and answer. So the maximum height of the building is calculated to the average height of the roof. So if you have if you start at the eaves and then you come up and then you have a crest to the roof, and then you may have some architectural pieces and so on, we look at the average height of everything from the eaves up. So it's not the maximum height of any sort of additional appurtenances or anything like that. It's the average height of the roof.
Can you flip back to the slide that showed, which number?
Oh, I'm sorry, slide number 6, the medical office building.
Yeah, so that's a good example of a varying roof line, but in that case, the dormers are the same height as the ridge, so, but it would be the average height.
Average height.
From the rain spout up to the peak.
Yes.
And while they're all thinking of more questions, we kept the public comment open. We got some emails. Did we hear anything significant different during that time period that you're aware of?
Not that we're aware of, no.
Okay.
So, and we talked yesterday, I think I asked a question about, as far as the grandfathering piece and all that kind of stuff. Currently, there are 10 commercial properties in the pipeline.
That's correct.
And one that would need this rule to change or to be adjusted, correct?
Yes, there are 10 officially in the pipeline.
Right.
We have had conversations with other developers that this would potentially affect.
Right.
But until we see details and so on, and know which direction that this would go, how much it would affect or not, so.
Because the one, and we're gonna be open about it, on Johnsville, it's two properties that were purchased by the same owner. One is commercial and the other is residential, owned by the same company or business. And right now, the way it stands, if things change all the way to the one side, it would limit their ability on one of their, and it's senior homes that are being built.
Yes. Yes, and that is one of the projects that's counted in the 10 that's in the pipeline.
That's counted in 10,
Yes.
yeah, so it really doesn't affect, so grandfathering, we're talking really about those 10. That's,
No. So just to clarify that, the grandfathering that we've discussed and have presented is grandfathering existing buildings.
Okay.
So that we don't create a non-conforming building through any changes.
Right.
Grandfathering of projects in the pipeline is a separate issue, that it's something certainly that can be added to the language of any resolution that gets adopted, to grandfather projects in the pipeline.
Can you describe in the pipeline and what the difference is between 9 of them and the one?
Sure, yeah. So in the pipeline, essentially, if we have a formal submission, so it is working through the development review process, and all those projects are public record. We show them on our website and so on. So they're going through the process of being reviewed and approved. They have not been approved yet at the end of the process. So that's what I mean by in the pipeline. And there are 10 projects that are in the pipeline that are on commercial properties that are adjacent to residential districts. Out of that 10, there's one project that we know for sure would be affected by a change here. And that's the one that Commissioner
On
Rothstein
Johnsville.
mentioned. Yes.
and then, I apologize.
Well, I was just going to say, so if we don't change the grandfathering, it's only existing buildings, these 10 would all now be subject to the new rule.
Correct.
Even though they were in process at some level.
Correct. But that is certainly at your discretion as to what kind of grandfathering provision you want to add to the ordinance.
And to me, it's in good faith, on how the property was purchased, and what the rules were. So that's concerning. The property also went through the TRC already, correct?
The Johnsville,
I believe it did.
yes, it did.
Yeah, so it went through the technical review already. They've done their due diligence with the community outreach multiple times.
Yes.
And there's never been any issues with that. So my concern is if we're challenging things, this is a good product for the good reasons for the community that it'll serve. And I do not want to affect that. The other piece of this is the property that, that's brought a lot of attention, that's been the catalyst of a lot of this. It's not in the pipeline, right?
Correct.
But we know that there's interest in development. And the interest in development of that property is to go no higher than 35 feet. And the interest in that development, is to conform to the community. I mean, they have rendition, but pictures, I guess, whatever it is, of what it's going to look like. And they're kind of chomping at the bit to talk to the community. I said, let's get through this. But that's a good product for the good reasons that's going to meet the 35 feet regardless of expanding the setback or anything. So, that's just, the truth right now as I know it. And knowing that, my concern, and I'm looking at you, really talking to you, collectively us, is if that was the issue and the catalyst, and we're addressing that with a good product that's going to go no higher than 35 feet, my challenge is I don't want to limit opportunities across the county when there's 225 properties that could significantly be affected. So I'm going to be, although I like the no change, I think, getting us halfway through it with that 35-foot change, going with what the Planning Commission said with a sliding scale, along with the grandfathering that'll allow those 10 properties to continue moving forward, that's going to be my recommendation. And I think it's for the good of the county. I think it addresses the community that is, concerned with what's going to be developed. And as soon as this is all done, we're going to set up, just like I did last time, a community meeting to allow them to have those conversations. He wants to be a part of the community, so that's my 2 cents.
Can I, and as everybody probably knows by now, and Daphne or Mary or Chris, whoever can help me, just remind me or refresh me about buffering and screening between these kinds of properties.
Sure. So the county has a landscape ordinance, which is kind of separate from what we've been discussing. And so there are requirements for, especially when you've got different zoning districts that are next to each other, commercial versus residential and so on. There are specific buffer requirements and landscaping requirements that go between those.
In order to help create some kind of separation between the residents and the other use other than non-residential use.
Yes, yes.
So, I agree with Commissioner Rossi, and I like the idea of a 35-foot height, and I don't disagree with there needing to be some kind of conditional scale for this. I certainly do not, I guess this kind of goes back to where we are with the budget at the root of it, because in terms of the budget, we are looking for ways to increase revenue without having to, and none of us want to raise taxes. If we limit certain kinds of development by a couple of feet, and a business, that's the difference between a business opening up or not, and that's the difference between generated revenue or not, that certainly would be concerning. At the same time, the reason why I always ask questions about the screening, the buffering, the distance, the setbacks, and I like the idea of increasing the setbacks. Certainly because there are people who live adjacent to these other uses, and so I certainly want to take their well-being into consideration as well, because the heart of this, not even just the root of it, the heart of all of this are the citizens that we serve, and so I am in favor of this amendment. I think that it's all the evidence we've heard, all the citizens that we've heard from. I think it is the best. It's the best way to bridge the differences of opinion about how we proceed with this. And I think it does strike at, a pretty good medium. It does take into account the fact that not every property in the county is going to be the same. It does take into account citizen concerns about, necessarily looking next door and looking into somebody's office from your bedroom. It certainly takes into account, I think Commissioner Ralston referenced the one project that's in process now, and I think it does strike to the heart of the matter. So I'm in favor of this.
To include the grandfathering that I
Yes.
described. Before just that property that they're looking at building, I said it was 35 foot at its tallest point. It's also 3 stories, so it's meeting, those questions and demands that have been brought to the last guy who couldn't get there and walked away from it. And the renderings definitely conform to the community, so, okay.
Could you pull slide 3 back up?
This is 3.
There we go. Thank you. So we're looking at not roughly, it's 20.34% of all the commercial properties being impacted by this amendment. Obviously, that's a very significant amount of the property in the county. as we all know, whether we're sitting up here or anybody that lives in the county, all of us, it's significant for both property rights as well as concerns of the neighbors as well. It's a balancing act, and I've said that so many times sitting up here in the past year. To me, I don't think there's perfection for everybody. I think the challenge, though, is we have to try to minimize the impact as much as we can, and I understand the concerns of the residents. But to Commissioner Vigliotti's point, I also don't want to minimize or challenge potential businesses that may want to be in the community. To me, that's very significant. Both are important, without question. I just wanted to take another look at this map. So we're looking, most of them, there's 140, Sykesville, the Hampstead-Manchester corridor, a small, bless you, small amount up in, the 2010 area, it looks like, and then there's,
Taylorsville,
okay.
One dot on 97.
Is it 97 there? Okay.
Just clear,
Random
it's Eldersburg.
Yeah,
You know,
but it's Eldersburg, pretty much the Westminster corridor, and then the Hampstead,
right.
Manchester. Okay. I appreciate you pulling that slide back up.
With all the sneezing going on, it's got to be allergies. Maybe that's a sign of spring.
Mr. Guerin, any comments?
I'm going to wait. I'll wait. I think, so I do appreciate the fact that the board decided to take this issue up. We're not the first county to be taking a look at these. In fact, last spring, when I wanted to have this discussion, the issue that's been referred to, I think it was Carroll Highlands, is at the moment, at that time, was over. So that didn't really impact my decision-making process about wanting to take a look at this as much as just what we did going forward. I'll wait to see what the motion is, and I will probably have one or two amendments that I will propose. We'll see how things go. But I just want to add that how things look in your neighborhood and in your county say a lot about the people that lead, your elected officials. And I know this seems a bit hyperbolic, but whether we're talking about how things look down on our border, it's just strewn, looks like a battlefield, or you're talking about a subway system that's dirty and you've got all kinds of nefarious things going on there. Or you're driving around down your town center street and you're trying to figure out who in the heck approved some of this awful looking architecture and buildings right up against the street, or there's a housing complex that doesn't quite fit in. How things look matter, and it says something to the people who are the residents, the people that are the tax-paying citizens, about how much the people that are running things and making decisions care. So I think how things look matter. And that's what started me on this particular journey. Again, we're not the first county to take a look at these. The idea of having a 50-foot building in my backyard, whether it's 10 feet or 15 feet or 30 feet, to me, just seems unfair. But I do appreciate the fact that there was a willingness on the board to at least look at the issue and maybe make some compromises. And I do look at this particular proposal here from Planning and Zoning Commission, although I definitely don't feel it goes far enough. I realize that it does move the ball a little bit, so that I'm appreciative of. But I'll wait to see how we want to go ahead and vote on this. I think I know how things are going, but I am going to recommend some changes in the language going forward.
And my position would be not to do this, but again, it is a compromise and maybe a realistic compromise, but when we're looking at one piece of property that a relatively small number of people have objected to, and we want to change a rule that affects 225 at least of the 1,106, I always struggle with when you make a new rule because of one instance. I do think this is a relatively good compromise. I think you guys did a good job. And I do think we need to modify the grandfathering. And I think what a lot of people don't think about, we're saying we grandfather 10 and one of whom may be affected by this. But we're not grandfathering many of the others, that somebody's purchased the property, is planning to do something, but just hasn't submitted it. And again, I understand the concern, I understand how things look, but I'm on a farm, and we probably have a building close to 50 feet, and I don't object to it a bit. Again, I think I've said this before, in the 70s, we built a house on Frottinger Mill Road, and there was a big farm field behind us. And I told my wife, you know, this is a good piece of property. We graded it. It wasn't, I don't know if it was a good piece of property, but we made it into one. But I said, if you're okay seeing 200 or 300 houses behind us in the next 10 years, then this is fine. Or you could buy that farm and then control what happens there. And we had 200 or 300 houses, and it didn't bother us a bit. I was pleasantly surprised how little effect it had. And again, I would caution people, when you look at a piece of property, you need to do due diligence and see what's next to it. And in this case, there wasn't a 50-foot building next to it, but by the rules, when most of these people purchased their house, there could have been one in the next year or two. And you really need to be cautious of that. And like I say, if it were totally up to me, I'd say I'm not even sure why we're doing this. But this is a good compromise, and I think if we add in the grandfathering and word it right, I'm okay with it, but as a compromise.
I do want to ask one quick question, if I could. Chris, when we were discussing the last time you were before us, correct me if I'm wrong, was there, I feel like there was some discussion about the idea, and I know some of the residents brought this forward to us, this idea of, for lack of a better word, limiting certain types of uses, be it, say, large self-storage. They were looking specifically, if I remember, strictly at industrial. That is something we could, in theory, take up, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was a good point, Commissioner Gordon.
Because I think I brought that up and last time, but it's outside the scope of what we're doing this time. So we couldn't really have.
It would have to be a secondary
It would
matter.
have to be a second. Because I brought that up specifically, and Mr. Burke slapped me and said, "Stop." I said, "Okay." So,
And for the record,
yeah.
doing this today or not doing this today doesn't change the fact that we
Right.
can bring up anything else
Exactly.
next week.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
I'm sure you guys are bored. You're waiting for us to
Yeah.
come up with something else, right?
Because I do appreciate, where Commissioner Guerin was going, that, the look and feel in our community. I mean, it's our community. And, I mean, maybe it's naive, but I like to believe in, a shake in the hand and have good faith. And that's what, I'm looking at. When they tell me 35 feet is what this facility is going to be at its tallest point, so therefore, it's really, because you got those peaks, it's really going to be 32 feet or 30, whatever, saying that it's only going to be 3 stories, saying that it could fit. Even with the sliding scale, they could go up to 50 feet, because of where it sits. But they're saying, no, it's going to be 3 stories, 35 feet from its tallest point, and I want to be a part of the community. I'm like, you're saying all the right things. Plus, looking at what it's going to look like, I'm like, that fits right into the Freedom Plan, how things conform into the community. That's what I like about that. As far as the grandfather, I think, again, we should have that as well in good faith, so when somebody purchases something and we change the rules, we're allowed to by law, but is it the right thing to do? And I don't believe it is, especially if it's not going to be something, that's going to be very difficult to deal with. I mean, that same property, we changed the rules as it was being looked at to be purchased from a gas station. and made that conditional and not permitted. And it was being purchased, and the community said, stop, we don't want this. And we listened, and we said, you're right, let's make this conditional, But it's difficult when you change the rules after somebody either puts money down or, we can do it up until the shovel's in the ground. Is it the right thing to do? I don't believe so, and I think that's why the whole grandfathering, it's not affecting this, it's affecting one property doing something, I believe, having done the due diligence. They went out to the community, they did everything, and it's going to be a good property. They even bought the property behind it to ensure that there's a nice sized buffer for what they want to achieve. So that's why I'm looking at this.
And you've mentioned the.
And that, I apologize, and that is in my backyard. I mean, that's like less than a quarter mile, from where I live. So some folks say, well, would you want this in your backyard? Well, it is in my backyard, so, okay.
And you've
apologize.
mentioned the height of the building several
Yeah.
times on the potential
Yeah.
builder here. What we've seen of the site plans, the one already planned was 70 feet off the property line.
Right.
So, again, my opinion, changing this to 50 feet affects 224 other properties, but won't affect this one, because by the nature of the parking, the stormwater management, whatever, they're gonna be over 50 foot away. They
will be.
almost have to be, and it sounds like this guy's willing to work with the community and
Yeah. He has no.
and not only on the height,
Yeah.
but
He
the
has-
looks, the whole bit. He
Yeah.
wants to meet the public.
Yep, he has no intent to build it outside of what he's shared, and that's 35 feet with a nice look to it in the community. I mean, I can share with you what he sent me now. He's invested in the property, so he doesn't want to lose that opportunity. And he wants to be now invested in the community. So he's been asking for the last month, let me get into the community to start talking. I said, well, let's get through this, so, but you're right. If it was 50 feet, he'd still be 35 feet away from everything and a good neighbor, so. But again, where Commissioner Gordon was going, that's a different topic for a different time, whether we're talking conditional use and all that kind of stuff, so.
Are we ready to make a motion and then discuss more?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed amendment to Chapter 158 of the county zoning code.
Well, but if you want to change the grandfathering, because
Well,
the
but
current.
so I'll make the motion, because I know Commissioner Guerin had also said he'd like to make some amendments. So if I make the basic motion, then we can add the amendments onto the motion, right?
Again,
Okay. Motion. Do you want me to say it again, or do I need to?
I think you need a second.
Oh, okay.
What was your motion?
Motion to,
What's written?
as written.
yep, motion to approve the proposed amendment to Chapter 158 of the county zoning code.
It appears we have no second.
Okay.
So would you like to try it with the grandfathering and see if you can get one?
Well, so, I mean, but
I
specifically.
understand what you're saying.
Right, but in summary, the amendment would, and it lists the things that it does, including grandfathering existing commercial buildings, but grandfathering that one specific kind of building that Commissioner Rothstein had talked about that's going through the process, I figured that might be better suited for an amendment, because grandfathering was already included in,
Just changing the grandfathering language from existing to existing and those within the pipeline, is all
and
I
it-
would say.
And it could well be more suited or whatever, but if you don't get a second, that's academic.
no, yeah, that's true. So. Can somebody, well, all right. I'll withdraw the motion, and I will make a motion to approve the proposed amendment to Chapter 158 of the county zoning code, including the grandfathering of projects that have reached,
They're in the pipeline, just say that.
It's in the pipeline.
In the pipeline.
I don't like the word pipeline, though.
That's fine.
In process, in
doesn't work.
Or have, where a concept plan has been submitted.
All right, grandfathering existing commercial buildings and buildings or projects where a site plan has been submitted.
Concept plan.
Concept plan, I'm sorry. I apologize, thank you.
And could we also add, or a conditional use has been approved?
All right,
Because
hold on a second, I gotta write this.
No, only because that's the grandfathering we've been using for these text amendments, and it's possible conditional use was approved, but the concept plan hasn't been.
Okay, so
brought forward.
grandfathering existing, where the
Concept plan has been submitted,
concept plan has,
or a BZA conditional use has been approved.
and/or BZA conditional
Use
use
has been approved.
has been approved. The beatings I take sometimes trying to get us on the right, all right. I will make a motion to withdraw my previous fractured emotion, or motion. Emotional at this point. I will make a motion to approve the proposed amendment to Chapter 158 of the County Zoning Code, including grandfathering existing buildings, those where concept plans have been submitted, and/or BZA conditional use has been approved. Did I get that right? Am I good?
Do we have a second?
Somebody better second that after all of that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion or questions?
I would like to offer an amendment to the motion for the removal of the sliding scale.
You mean completely, or?
Yeah.
So it would just be 35 feet, right?
So-
That'd be the max height.
Do I need to second that to
No, no, no,
discuss it?
No.
I'm sorry.
No, You,
Okay, we're good for,
you're good.
all right, so,
This is open for discussion.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that we
Commissioner
weren't,
Barron is
I wanted-
looking to
okay.
Oh, we had to
make
second.
that
Oh, wait,
amendment.
no, so someone would have to
Oh,
second
second
the
yours, I
motion
Right,
apologize.
that's the
to
amendment
amend
for discussion, right?
If,
Or are we not being that formal with Robert's
Well-
rules?
We should.
you can allow, if someone seconds the motion, it gets discussion. If they don't second the motion, it fails for lack of a second.
Well, I will second the motion for discussion because I don't want Commissioner Guerin not to be able to talk about what's on his
Well,
mind.
well, again, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, again, I think that, I've already mentioned that I do appreciate the considerations being made, and the situation down in, with Carroll Highlands was not as much of a issue for me to bring this up as people might think, but I would like to see that sliding scale removed from the amendment.
And it's just, yeah, no, I understand. So my follow-up question, because I appreciate that, out of that 225 properties, well, nothing's in the pipeline, so it's just vacant properties.
No, so the 225 properties are both developed and unimproved. So there are 225 properties that are zoned commercial that are adjacent to residential.
How many of them would be non-conforming if it's 35 feet?
We don't have that number.
Yeah, again, I think it's so foolish to make a rule that affects a whole bunch of properties. I just think this would be
Yeah.
foolish.
But my point is, it may not be actually affecting them if they're already,
Okay,
built.
so
But
say
I'm
it's
just
50
saying-
of them. Say it's 10 of them. I don't care.
Yeah, but
It's-
say it's 200 of them that have retail or something that they're 20 feet high and
Yep.
they're already there, and we're only talking, a handful of potential non-compliant and
But-
if they're non-compliant, they're non-compliant. We don't tear them down, right?
There are many 50-foot buildings in Carroll County. We've heard testimony that there aren't many. There's many.
Yeah.
Why would we want to blacklist them? I just,
Well, you're not. I mean,
yes, you are. You're saying they can't build another one 50-foot high.
you can't say you can't build, 'em, but those that are built are existing non-compliant, correct?
Non-conforming, you mean?
Non-conforming, I apologize. And they just stay.
Yes.
So
Yeah, they-
I apologize.
I just want to clarify that they can stay, but then their non-conforming status affects any modifications they could make in the future.
So basically,
they're
the,
Yes,
limited
it
by
still
what
does.
they could
Stuck
Good-
the way
Good
it
point,
is.
thank you. It does, it potentially could affect them. It's not, they're not home scot-free.
so, and my thought, and while I certainly respect and appreciate where Commissioner Guerin is coming from with the proposed amendment to the amended motion, Again, my concern is that you have 225 or 20% of the properties in the county that would be impacted without some kind of conditional scale, because, not every property is the same. And so again, I respect and understand where you're coming from, but also taking into consideration the fact that there's, more than 200 other properties that would be affected by this. Personally, I can't support the amendment to remove the scale.
Which also equates to a fifth of the commercial properties.
And I think, I'm not asking because I don't think you guys have numbers on everything sitting here. The sliding scale, based on the average size of these lots, many of them may not be able to go to 50 anyway, just because, which was the intent of this compromise, is if they're too close, they can't. I
Okay.
think.
No,
And again,
I got you.
You know this, I totally respect what you're saying, I just
Yeah.
disagree.
The whole,
Oh, I know, yeah.
and
Occasionally you disagree with me.
Occasionally.
the property in Eldersburg that's, again, started this with Carroll Highlands, that's already taken care of, because they're building a 35-foot building, so that's not even in the equation anymore. The other piece in Eldersburg is taken care of. The concern is that 20% of the county's commercial properties could be affected. But out of that, we don't know exactly how many.
So do we need to vote on, Commissioner?
If discussion's over on the amendment, we need to vote on the amendment.
Well, we need to get a second on that amendment.
You did.
We did.
Commissioner
Okay, I
Vigliotti seconded.
apologize.
Which I appreciate. Thank you, Commissioner
You're
Bigley.
more than
Yes.
welcome.
Going back to what you were saying about revenue, we don't have the revenue. And we don't have the revenue long-term. We're not going to tax our way out of the budget this year. We're not going to, and I say that often about lots of things. So therefore, we have to grow where appropriate and bring in revenue through those means. This would limit that, which is a concern. That's what you brought up as well. So, yeah, I think I'm still on the 35 with sliding scale.
So any more discussion on the amendment to get rid of the sliding scale and stay at 35 feet maximum height? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Wait, what?
I want to make sure you
All
guys know
those in
what you're voting
favor?
on.
Wait, hold on.
Are you voting on you're voting on my amendment?
Yes.
Right.
Oh, wait, hold on. I'm sorry.
So
Back up.
I'll take it. I'll
If
take
you
it.
vote for this, the new limit is 35 feet height, no sliding.
So if I vote for the amendment,
You've eliminated the sliding scale.
okay, no.
No,
Sorry.
I misunderstood
I
you,
apo-
sorry.
So
We
let
both
me
got-
start
we
over.
both got-
Why did I say anything?
You had it.
Kept my mouth shut.
Honest
three.
person.
All those in
Problem.
favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Yeah. Okay, several ayes
Four
from
times, does that count?
you, yes or no?
No,
Okay, all those opposed?
no.
No.
No. So 4-1 opposed. We're now back to the original amendment, which please don't read it again.
Thank you. Thank you.
The
So I-
the original motion, yes, not amendment.
So
Any
I-
more discussion on it?
So I'd like to offer up one amendment here, and I know very brief, and we talked about this, and we talked about how, there was some concern about the subjectivity of aesthetics to a building, right? But I certainly take that to heart, and so I'm at least going to try to offer an amendment that is flexible enough that some kind of aesthetic concern can be taken into account when building something in one of these areas. So I'm going to make a motion to amend for reasonable local aesthetic conformance. A building goes up or is proposed for one of these pieces of property, that the existing architecture in the surrounding area, the local aesthetic, reasonably has to be taken into consideration conforming with that local architectural or aesthetic standard.
I
That's
think that's
style.
impossibly
Style.
Subjective. I think that would be very impossible to enforce.
Well, I will respectfully argue with our county attorney, and I will say that there's definitely a strong distinction. Let's say you have like a neighborhood with all Tudor architecture. There's a very strong differentiation between Tudor or neo-Tudor architecture and postmodern architecture.
Agreed.
Okay, but
And I would like
don't-
to
I
comment
don't-
on this subjective amendment. I really don't like your tie, but I will sit here next to it for 4 hours.
Oh, you really don't like my tie today?
I mean, you
I
know.
would be concerned that there's a statutory construction concern. It's called, the standard's void for vagueness. I think that, as Tim alluded to.
My amendment is too vague.
Yeah.
I have to
think-
try, though. I mean,
if,
it's
if this were, Stratford, England, and there were, the Shakespeare House and a whole mess of other Tudor homes around, maybe it would make sense. But unfortunately, I think we're too much of a polyglot to try to put that. Now, we do have some, we have landscaping, we have other parts of the zoning code and development ordinances that do try to give some structure to how structures are developed, and we can certainly review those and with you and come up with more controls or more restrictions on those, but if I may suggest.
so not pertinent to this, because there's another capacity for discerning what, okay, all right.
And just I'll tell you my 2 cents. The Freedom Plan that was adopted in 2018 has subjectivity embedded in it, throughout it. And, when this all started, that was one of my, comments was which one takes precedence, which one is not more important, but because some folks were looking at the Freedom Plan to make their arguments. Others were looking at the law, the ordinances. And for Freedom Plan, for all the right reasons, as it was written, it was prior to me to be describing the community. There's too much subjectivity in it, and it is very difficult. So,
Well,
yeah, just
I certainly take that point. I will withdraw my amendment, but I will respectfully press the case that there's actually, I would argue there's less subjectivity than one might reasonably conclude from the discussion, because it's not me saying, I look at that Monet painting and I think it's beautiful, and I look at that Cézanne and it's throw it in the trash, right? It's
You're saying it should be like other, but I just think there's probably not enough likeness around to make that
it
easily determinable.
any more of this, I'm gonna mess up your hair.
that's awfully subjective of you.
Any more discussion on the?
Well, I'll withdraw my amendment, but I would like to have a discussion about those aesthetic standards, at some point, when, I guess maybe once we get through the budget, because I know we have a lot coming up with that, so.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it's a good conversation to have.
Yep. Any more discussion on the original motion and second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did you vote
Thank
for it?
you, everyone.
We just voted on the amendment as it was written, correct?
Yeah,
No.
the motion.
The motion
Motion
Mo-
as Commissioner
Yeah.
Vigliotti, with
Yeah.
the sliding
Yeah.
scale.
with the sliding scale
And the
and the grandfather.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, just wanted
Well, it's
to-
better than what we started with.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Why
yes.
wouldn't I
Okay,
vote
just want to
for
make
it?
sure.
Oh,
I'm
exactly.
not happy about it, but I'm still gonna
Yeah. And
Very honest to make sure that your colleagues voted for
But
it.
honestly,
I want to
but
make sure you voted for it.
honestly, if you didn't mess it up, you did have 3 votes.
I know.
And
I'm gonna hear about that
and
too.
Commissioner Guerin, I'm glad you said that, because we discussed it, they did their work, and we beat it around, and I'm about as unhappy as you are, but we met in the middle.
I will warn my colleagues that I will be trying the filibuster method at some point if I don't get my way on some of these future discussions, but that's okay.
I'd like to hear some filibustering, not today, but maybe another day.
Okay, are we done?
If I may ask, so the topic was brought up regarding looking at specific uses, such as self-storage and the applicability in various districts. I don't believe that we need to have a formal agenda item and so on, if the board so wishes, we could certainly look into that type of use. And if we come across other uses that we feel might benefit from looking at that through our discussions internally with staff and then also with the Planning and Zoning Commission, we could bring those to you as well.
Do you mind sending us, and I know we've looked at this 100 times in the last 13 months, the conditional uses that exist in this zoning, so just so we can all compare what we're talking about versus what's already conditional?
Is it in this?
It is in
Yes,
that. It's
it
by
is.
district, if you'd like it all summarized,
Right.
but it's color-coded.
Okay. Okay.
But it's in here, and it'll
Oh,
show-
I
yeah.
knew that before I asked, but either way, it, yeah. So, we're done.
Oh, we're done with them.
Poor Chris. Thank you all very much, and thank you for your patience with us as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, thank you.
Item 6, HVAC renovation at Carroll County Office Building.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Promise this will be easy.
You guys like on the edge of your seat as you waited?
It's all good.
So if you would have messed up my hair, would you have combed his hair?
So with that said, I'll move the Board of County Commissioners award a contract to Johnson Controls for the renovation and replacement of the HVAC system on the second floor of the Carroll County Office Building in the amount of $896,522.
Second.
Have a motion in a few seconds, which means at least 3 of us don't even want to hear them. Is that where we are? They're so good in writing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, 6 HVAC ventilators at the detention center.
The Office
I'll
of,
move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the purchase and installation of 6 HVAC ventilators at the detention center from Havtech Service Division LLC in the amount of $317,684.68.
Second.
I got a motion and several seconds, which possibly means you waited longer than you're going to be sitting there. And
good job, Dustin.
any more discussion?
The only discussion, it was a competitive bid.
This here was under the TIPS
Got
contract.
it.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval to purchase storm drain replacement on Manor Drive.
Consider that the ultimate compliment, Justin.
Yes,
We
thank
trust
you.
you guys. Don't look at it any other way. Okay, thanks.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Bureau of Roads Operations, requests your approval to award Highland Turf Incorporated, an existing term contractor, to perform a storm drainage system replacement on Manor Drive and Valley Lane in Woodbine in the amount of $94,390. Roads Operations obtained 3 quotes from our term contract. This amount is within the fiscal year '24 budget, and no additional funds should be necessary.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We've been reviewing this Manor Drive project for a while, and it's located in District 4 down in Woodbine Acres. The drainage system, the entire development was built sometime around the 1970s, so the storm system is pushing 50 years old. Review of the pipes showed that they're deteriorated, causing road failures, so we're replacing the corrugated metal pipe with HDPE, installing some new inlets to make the flow go, and then the contractor will be flowable filling the existing pipes so we don't create sinkholes in the future.
Motion to approve the storm drainage system pipe replacement on Manor Drive and Valley Lane in the amount of $94,390.
Second.
And this isn't the last CMP that we have in Carroll County, is it?
No.
There's a lot, and a lot deteriorating.
Yes.
Do you have a passport to go down to Woodbine? Just asking.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm not sure.
Thank
we're gonna
you.
gi- I'm not sure we're gonna give Mr. Ripper as much freedom. We'll see.
Item 9,
How nice he
contract
is.
renewal.
What? Morning, Commissioners. I'm sorry. Morning. Morning. Good morning.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with Technology Services, requests your approval to award the renewal for Laserfish Basic Annual Support Services to MCCI in the amount of $46,919.30. This amount is approved in the fiscal year 24 budget, and no additional funds should be required.
Carroll County government uses the Laserfish RIO product for document capture and archiving, scan, index, and file. This product provides the capability for quick retrieval of archived documents and document lifecycle management. Laserfish is used by several government departments and its partners.
Are there other, you said by many departments, I mean, is it competitive with other programs or other, you know?
Is it, I'm sorry, what is it?
Is there another product that's being used with other departments, or
No, everybody who's doing this is using the laser.
everybody who is using, who
Yes.
does this is using this? Okay.
Laserfish, yes.
Correct.
Okay. I'll move the Board of County Commissioners award renewal of the Laserfish annual support to MCCI in the amount of $46,919.30.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
My normal question, you can only do this a year at a time?
Yes, sir. We always look into that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And now, from the same group, we're going to hear about secondary internet service provider service.
Okay. The Office
Almost the same group, sorry.
Good morning.
All right. The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Department of Technology Services, requests your approval to award the secondary ISP service to Skyline Technology Solutions in the amount of $126,093.65. This was competitively bid by us, I guess, Carroll County. This cost has been approved within the fiscal year 24 budget.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners. This project will establish a secondary connection to the internet for us, to Network Maryland, across our CCPN fiber. Having that flexibility will give us added redundancy, plus the flexibility to increase our bandwidth to Network Maryland as needed to meet the needs of the growing services in the county.
Motion to award the secondary ISP service to Skyline Technology Solutions in the amount of $126,093.65.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all very much.
And last but not least, approval to purchase uniforms for the Department of Fire and EMS. And be cautioned that Commissioner Rothstein may cut you off at any time.
Good morning, Chief.
Morning,
Good to
Chief.
see you.
Haircut, I'm not sure about that one. No, I'm kidding.
It's been a while.
You know, for his concern with my interest in aesthetics for architecture, he's got a lot of interest in aesthetics for human beings. Have you noticed that today?
I'm not even sure what you're saying.
And just so I can fit in with him, I'm starting to like your tie.
Oh, well, thank you. It grows on you. It grows on you.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Department of Fire and EMS, requests your approval to award the purchase of uniforms and turnout gear from the Whitmer Public Safety Group through term contracts 12141 and 12173 in the amount of $100,000. These uniforms and turnout gear will be purchased via a competitively bid contract through CoStars and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This amount is approved within the fiscal year 24 budget.
Hey, Chief.
good morning,
I'll move the Board of
Commissioners.
Commissioners approve the purchase of uniforms and turnout gear from the Whitmer Public Safety Group in the amount of $100,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I warned you.
That was easy.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Chief, I want to publicly convey my thanks to your folks at Mount Airy last night, including our volunteer folks, for responding to something across the street from me last night. I don't know if you heard about what had happened, but they did a great job with taking care of things, so much appreciated.
Thank you. Pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Chris, do we have any more callers?
Yes, sir, we do have a caller that's jumped online. If you could use *6 to unmute yourself and identify yourself. You'll have 3 minutes for public comment.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Catherine Adelaide, County Republican Central Committee. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. First, don't hate me for being virtual, but I am very impressed to hear that Commissioners Kyler and Rothstein travel to Annapolis every Wednesday during the legislative session. Thank you for that effort. On the subject of virtual participation, I did want to thank you for the opportunity to connect with the board this way. I just discovered, or maybe it's something new, a split screen where I can see the agenda while I'm watching the meeting. So it really makes it easier for me to get other things done while I'm listening in. My two favorite segments weekly are this Priority Carol and the legislative update. I did appreciate comments I heard about, encouraging the small businesses, because as Republicans, we want to keep government small and businesses growing. I also appreciated the comments I heard about boundaries and constraints on some of these incredible sweeping state, national, quite frankly, and state initiatives, including the funding. I really appreciate when I hear words like local control, whether it's in education or particularly with drugs and our local control on the state pot initiative, to follow the federal law. That's the best local control you can have, is push back on that. I would like to encourage you to add to Priority Carol Weekly a drug segment. I sincerely believe that between recreational pot, fentanyl, heroin, kratom, and every other thing that's going to be coming down the pike, which, by the way, will include heroin because it's a Schedule I drug also. So if we allow Schedule I drugs to just be willy-nilly thrown into Carroll County, you can be sure the rest will follow within several years. Especially I wanted to, I missed a pro-Israel resolution that the committee had passed. We passed unanimously at the Carroll County Republican Central Committee on January 25th, a resolution of the Carroll County Republican Central Committee on the October 7th attacks in Israel and the need to support Israel and combat post-terrorist rallies and groups. I read that into the record. You should have a copy of it, but it's also on our website. Finally, reminder of the legislative breakfast coming up Saturday, February 24th. From 8 to 11, just go to ccgop.net to get your tickets. I do appreciate all the legislative work and that you guys are keeping up on everything. I would never want to have to investigate all the different issues that you guys are doing. Thank you so much. I appreciate all your work.
Thank you. Chris, no other callers?
That's it. Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, does anybody have any comments for administrative session open?
1 second, we do
Oh, you do have one here. Okay, sorry.
Michelle Jefferson.
I haven't been sitting back here just to listen to everybody. Came to talk. That's okay? I like the fact you guys talked about chicken poop earlier because that's sort of what I would like to talk about. The chicken poop that's going to be in my neighborhood with this Chick-fil-A. I left a letter here with Roberta for each of you. This is from the Annapolis delegation, signed by all four of our delegates in support of my neighborhood. We are not against developing the property. We are not against business development. We need something like you guys have been talking about all along, something that is conducive to our neighborhood. Mike, I really wish you were my commissioner. You get it. Tom, I'm a little disappointed that I haven't talked or heard from anybody from your office in the last 4 weeks, or this board in general, because I stood here 4 weeks ago and I begged you for help. Basically what this does, what happens is the city of Westminster owns this property. They can't review the plans. They don't have the staff, so they send it over here to the county. So the site development plan is in. If you want to do something with your zoning ordinance, make sure our incorporated towns and cities have to alert the adjoining neighborhoods or adjacent neighborhoods that some of these things are being discussed. This developer would like to do this, or this developer would like to do that, instead of us having to stumble across it, because right now you guys, the county, are complicit with helping the city do what they want to do. The council, the town council, has plausible deniability because an unelected the folks in the planning commission at the city of Westminster get to make the decisions of where these businesses go or don't go, just like they do here. So the town council says, we have no idea. So we had to go to the town council and put it on their record, even though they knew that we weren't happy with this. So now the county's involved. You have to review the site development plan, and the technical review hearing is on the 26th of this month. We can't go past that date, or else I'm going to have a Chick-fil-A and 3,000 cars in my neighborhood. Somebody, I asked for help. I begged for help. I don't beg. I asked for help, and I haven't gotten it. So the delegation was nice enough to give us a letter of support. They had to dance a little bit with the business aspect of it, and I get it. Nobody is against business development. We are a bedroom community. We don't have industry, so we have retail. I get that. Like I said before, I'm a commercial building permit expediter, 36 years. I understand how this all works and why I'm starting to panic, because I know where we are in the process. We get past Monday, I'm selling my house.
Please finish your thoughts.
Is there anybody here willing to help me in my neighborhood?
I have a comment to make afterwards, but public comment is not question and answer.
Well, we had a tit for tat before. I thought maybe we could do that again. But is there anybody here willing to help me?
Thank you
in
very
my
much for your
neighborhood?
comments.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment, since I was just chastised for not responding. I think Chick-fil-A would be a good addition to the neighborhood, and I haven't tried to stir the pot, but since you'd like my opinion, that's it. Anybody else have any comments?
For my neighborhood?
And we now need to look at approval of closed minutes.
As a follow-up, I would like to,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
as a
Yeah.
follow-up, at some point, I would like
Yeah,
to.
we're
better-
in
I would-
administrative open.
Okay, at some point, I would like to understand more how the town is now with the county. I just guess I missed that the first time, because it was much more about just trying to slow this project down. So I just don't know.
You talking about you talking about Westminster's
Exactly, yeah.
processes
We
tied
can
into
certainly
the-
look at that.
And it's not, yeah, and I think that is a fair question, that it's not just Westminster to the county, but it's how do all 8 jurisdictions relationships have with the county? What do the towns rely on from the county? Because it becomes sometimes confusing. Like we talk about police and sheriff cooperation and other things. Yeah, so.
The county provides pretty much all of the development review services for all the towns. So there's a slight exception for Tawny Town. So, yeah, the towns don't have the staff in, all the environmental codes and the floodplains and all those things, forest conservation. So the county provides all of those services.
And
We do in accordance
Okay.
with their rules.
So, like Commissioner Guerin, I would like a little more elucidation on the matter. But something else that struck me, and I don't know whether or not this continues to be the case with town-county agreements, but I seem to remember when I was serving on the city council in Tawnytown, signing some MOU with the county, where when the county does something within a mile of the jurisdictional limits of a municipality, there's a period of time where the county is able to speak with their counterparts in the municipality about what it is that's going to happen, and that they have by first right the ability to comment on whatever is going to happen. And then this goes back to 2013, 14, 15, that I remember seeing this specific section in whatever the town-county agreements were at the time. At least I remember that. Or maybe some other MOU, but
Yeah, the town-county agreements haven't changed markedly in the last 10, 15 years, other than to add the stormwater management language, where we have an agreement with the towns that we'll work together to identify appropriate stormwater management, because we have a unified permit for our National Pollutant Elimination Discharge System. And so we work together to identify those programs, and then the towns pay a portion of a reviewer's salary, and then they pay a portion of the overall NPDS permit work done in the county. They pay 20%, we pay 80%.
So if
So
the-
that was the most recent, well, actually, what changed in the town-county agreement was the part where they would pay for that person's salary, or person, it's now 2 people. But there's also an MOA that talks about the rest of it, the 80-20 and split, and then how we identify properties and things. But there may be language in there, I'll look. I don't remember anything about any kind of agreement within a mile, but
Okay, because I do want to look at that again, because, or I'd like to find out whether that is the case, because I do specifically remember back in 2000, again, I think at this point it's 2014, there was some interest in rezoning land to put in a gasification plant, or the interest was something about some kind of plant.
2 predecessors before you was very
Right, and
involved in gas.
And so I had a hand in composing the letter opposing the change in the zoning and referencing whether it was a town-county agreement or some other MOU. But yeah, the distinction between something like this, for example, with the Chick-fil-A about who has what authority and where it lies, I certainly...
So the county doesn't have any authority on approving it or disapproving it. It's just the basic background, you submit your concept plan, we review it, goes through all the, they have to do whatever traffic impact studies. The town, in any of these cases, it's the town's planning commission that does the, approval of the plans as it goes through the.
So
All we
Westminster's,
do is...
We're just the background.
All we do is make sure they comply with the current rules and regulations.
Right.
The submittal
and
process.
so it's up to the city.
Floodplain
Yes.
and.
So this is up to the city to either
Say yes
agree
or
or
no.
disagree to having a Chick-fil-A. It's not the county
Yep.
It's their
or the
zoning.
state or anybody else.
It's their zoning that
Right.
determines whether
Right.
such a commercial enterprise would be allowed there.
Right.
And then, it's their water, their sewer, their, things.
Because a similar situation, to an extent, is Warfield. It's Sykesville property. They rely on us to do a lot of the work, but
We do it every town with the exception of Tawnytown.
yeah. So, but
And they hire an outside.
but the zoning, it's they can't argue with me. I'm like, go to the town, go to Sykesville. They can't go to the state. They tried.
Yeah, and I
the
think-
same thing with the secretary. He's like, you got to talk to Sykesville.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and again, I know comment portion's over with, but yeah, as a board, when we want to be respectful of our townships and municipalities, so when we hear that something's going on within them, we try to keep that good relationship with them and let them make their decisions. But then, of course, then we hear how we are actually, in some ways, administratively working the process. That's when I think a few of us sort of, our ears perked up and said, well, what do you mean?
We provide lots of services to our towns.
It's very unfortunate that the town council and the leadership in Westminster, if they did ignore this issue, that's a darn shame. But if I were to ask Chris Hine or the county administrator what we can do up here, aside from political discussions on the side,
Right.
the answer sounds like it's, you can't really do much unless you want to start to change the relationship.
Not from the dais. You're
Well,
right.
we make
Individually,
sure they abide by the law.
With the constituents, because
the Yeah.
constituents are not
Okay.
be happy, and there's more of us than
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I do think Commissioner Guerin makes a good point. I do think if we could get a little bit additional information, that'd be ideal for all of us. And also, just for a point for everybody sitting here, Westminster doesn't hold TRC meetings, which we obviously do, but they do not. So that's obviously a difference in how we approach things versus that.
They don't have a technical review
So,
process?
so if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
It's the county holds TRC meetings. We ask, when it's a town project, we ask whether the town would like us to organize a TRC for that project. And it's up to the town whether or not we do. In this case, so far as I know, until Ms. Jefferson mentioned that there is one on Monday, I did not believe that there was, and I've asked staff, I haven't. You have? Okay, well, they may have changed them.
Maybe they have,
I don't
because
know.
I was not even aware of that, yes.
I'm finding out, so.
Okay.
This has been
You
interesting.
may have the new news.
Now, this is interesting.
She told us that back in January, that the technical review hearing was scheduled for February 26th. We have it up on our site, we've had it up there for over a month.
Okay.
But going back to the fundamentals, it's up to the city to say yes or no, whether they want something to move forward. It's not the county, it's not the state, it's not the legislators. I mean, we can influence, an advocate one way or the other individually, but, yeah.
And my philosophy's always been, if the city wants it, then as
Yeah.
long as they comply with all the rules and
Yeah.
regulations, the traffic study, et cetera, so be it,
Well, that's what elections are for.
Yeah.
That's what elections are for.
Yep.
And you better,
So, yeah.
me and you, sweet pea.
Yeah, for the record, I have no idea what you're saying unless you're at a mic. I'm here,
Everybody else does.
Okay,
I'm
thank
hearing
you.
impaired.
Have a
Thanks.
good day, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah. Now,
One last thing for open admin, I apologize, I'll only be a second. I can't believe I forgot to mention this morning, and I apologize, Mom, from the bottom of my heart. It's my mom's birthday today. She watches every single one of our meetings, from the beginning to the end.
Mom, I like his tie. And I didn't know that.
Mom, he needs to get a haircut.
Go ahead.
And I could not have asked God for a better mom, and Mom, I love you with all of my heart, and I will call you on the way home. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
You mess with Mom, Commissioner.
I know.
Kyle. I didn't even know that.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, that's the whole.
How long would it take her to drive here and like 8 hours?
She likes all of you, so.
Oh, okay, good.
I think Commissioner Kyle is worried. How long would it take her to drive here?
Well,
No, I'm just
can
kidding.
make
You don't have to answer that.
We could figure it out. We could figure it out, Kenny.
Okay. Are we interested in approving closed minutes from February 13th?
So moved.
Second.
Any more comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. We're ready to talk.
Hello, Wanda, how are you?
Hi, Wanda.
Okay, Monday, February 19th, county office is closed for President's Day. At 5:30, our delegation has the Carroll County Delegation Night in Annapolis.
And Wanda, please add me to that. I will be attending as well.
And it's a good event, I think, at Maryland Inn, and everybody's welcome to walk over and see them in session. And I don't know, what time is the Lincoln?
The Lincoln address,
That is.
Is that a conflict of
It's at
time, or can we walk over and see that
no,
afterwards?
you walk over with them.
Yeah.
Typically, it's like at 7:30 or 8 or something. I don't know.
Because that's, it is President's Day. And while you're looking, on Tuesday, Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Gordon, 12:30, Veterans Advisory Luncheon, Commissioner Kyler and Rothstein, 2 p.m. Veterans Advisory Meeting, Commissioner Gordon and Kyler. Wednesday, I'm sorry, God, I went off on a tangent. Wednesday, 9 a.m., Talent Reimagine Workforce Convening Event, Commissioner Gordon. 9:30 a.m. MACO Subcommittee on Education, 10 a.m. MACO Legislative Committee, 5 p.m. Carroll County Community College, Commissioner Kyler, 7 p.m. ESAC meeting, Commissioner Garing. On Thursday, 8 a.m. closed admin, 9 a.m. open Commissioners meeting. Item 1, Board of Health, and
That's not happening, because
that's
Canceled.
being rescheduled.
Rescheduled.
Item 2, legislative update, which is now item 1, but you'll straighten us out, right? Item 3, public hearing on annual transportation plan. Item 4, state and local fiscal recovery fund update. Item 5, briefing on concurrency management report. Then public comment, and then agenda review. And then at 1:30 PM is a joint meeting between the county commissioners and ESAC. On Friday, Carroll County National History Day, Commissioners Gordon, Guerin, Rothstein, and Vigliotti.
I will not be able to attend that. I'm attending another function that morning.
Sunday, February 25th, the podcast is Commissioner Guerin, and at 4 PM, Bikers for Cause Foundation, Chapter 6, one-year anniversary at the American Legion, Commissioner Kyler. On the second week, Monday, no activities. Tuesday, February 27th, Shock Trauma Board of Visitors meeting, Commissioner Rothstein.
I think that's canceled. That's canceled. I just
That's
received.
canceled?
Correct.
And just holler if it's not canceled.
It's canceled.
It's canceled. Wednesday, February 18th, Mako Education Subcommittee, 9:30, 10 a.m. Legislative Committee meeting, Commissioners Kyler and Rothstein. On Thursday, 8 a.m., Board of County Commissioners admin session, 9 a.m., Commissioners open session, Priority Carroll National FFA Week. Aaron Guyman will be here to join us, and I'm sure with a small crowd. Item 1, legislative update. Item 2, employee referral program policy presentation. Item 3, contract award for pipe culvert repairs. Item 4, family shelter change order. And public comment and administrative open. And Commissioner Rothstein has the podcast. Any additions or changes beyond what we talked about? I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Good meeting.